Hey everyone, today is Wednesday, April 8th, and it is the last day of language arts assignments that we have for you about the text called About Cesar. We're going to be working on your skills practice lesson, and it's all about informational text elements. We have talked about this a little bit, but we've made more of a focus on text structure so far. When we review a little bit about text elements during the model tab, it is important to note that we are specifically looking at how Cesar definitely made a big impact, not just on people, but also many different types of issues and events around the world. So his lasting impact is really what we're going to be focusing on today. So let me first remind you, if you haven't yet, make sure that you watch the overview video. Also, you can watch the read and annotate video and the comprehension questions videos to help you if you haven't done those assignments for Monday and Tuesday yet. I will also tell you that if you feel as if you didn't do too hot on the comprehension questions and you do want to um, have some help or would like us to reopen it to give you some more guidance on it, you definitely can ask us that at any time. Once you're ready, go ahead and join me first in opening up your Google Slides. Again, that's down here on Google Classroom. And we're going to look at the schedule for today. It says we're first going to view the learning targets on slide 6, and then we're going to open up StudySync. And again, you're going to watch this on your own, but I'm going to do the model tab with you as well as walk you through and read the your turn questions to you. So on slide 6 for today's learning targets, we're going to learn the definition of informational text elements and practice using concrete strategies for analyzing informational text elements. And on slide 7, again, it gives you the same directions. So when you open up the assignment, like I mentioned, I would like for you all to do this on your own time. Maybe either you can pause this video and watch it yourself on StudySync, or you can view it afterward. But for the definition, just keep in mind that an informational text presents readers with information or ideas about real people, places, things, and events. Writers of informational text provide facts and details related to historical, scientific, and cultural topics. Some writers might also try to persuade you to accept a specific point of view about a subject. The many types of informational texts include biography, diary, interview, article, report, advertisement, letter, editorial, essay, proposal, and speech. The main elements of the text will vary depending on which type of informational text a writer chooses. For example, consider the different elements found in a news article and a travel essay. A news article may aim to present strictly accurate facts and details about a specific event. It may include eyewitness accounts of what happened, but the writer might omit his or her own ideas and opinions. A travel essay, by contrast, provides the writer's impressions of landscapes, people, and events encountered during the course of traveling. In this case, when we're talking about the text, we're going to pay attention to how it describes Cesar's impact on people, different ideas, events in the world, and our history. All right, so let's look at the model tab. When we want to identify and apply, we want to look for key details in the text that describe or explain important ideas, events, or individuals. In this case, in terms of the ideas, we're talking about the idea of working towards workers' rights and different types of freedom for these workers to be able to be paid and treated fairly in the workplace. And in terms of events, you could talk about all of the different strikes and boycotts and marches that he did as well, but even different events that have now been impacted or influenced by what he did and his ideas. You also want to identify transition words and phrases such as because, as a consequence, or as a result that signal interactions among individuals, ideas, and events. Determine how an event or a sequence of events influences an individual, a subsequent event, or an idea. And we definitely saw this. The text mentioned very frequently about his legacy, about how even after his death, President Clinton, President Obama have recognized and respected him as a true leader and somebody who had such a good impact on our country's history for many people. Determine how an individual or individuals influence ideas or events. Again, how did Cesar Chavez influence people to want to change and reform farm workers' rights? And ask yourself how interactions with ideas and events play a part in shaping people's thoughts and actions. So, when we look at this model, a lot of what I just set up here is now going to be put into practice. So, in About Cesar, the Cesar Chavez Foundation provides a brief overview of how the great farm labor leader, Cesar Chavez, improved the lives of farm workers through his efforts and ideas. Much of the text is devoted to presenting evidence of how Chavez influenced individuals, ideas, and events by bringing about historic rights for migrant farm workers. In paragraph 2, the foundation explains how Chavez first became interested in the struggles of migrant farm workers. The paragraph focuses on events in Chavez's life that influenced his own thoughts and ideas. At age 11, his family lost their farm during the Great Depression and became migrant farm workers. Throughout his youth and into adulthood, Cesar traveled the migrant streams throughout California, laboring in the fields, orchards, and vineyards, where he was exposed to the hardships and injustices of farm worker life. So, based on what he experienced, this influenced his thoughts and ideas to want to make things better, not just for himself, but everybody else that was working in the same conditions as he was. The key details are that Chavez's family became migrant farm workers in California after they lost their farm during the Great Depression, and that these circumstances exposed Chavez to the hardships and injustices of farm worker life. If Chavez had not had these experiences, he may not have grown up to champion the cause of farm workers. Especially if he owned a farm before with his family, maybe they wouldn't have cared as much about the rights of farm workers. In paragraph 5, the foundation introduces the idea that Chavez took action and expressed thoughts and ideas that influenced other individuals. The coming years would bring much more adversity: strikes and boycotts, marches and fasts, victories and defeats. But through it all, Chavez learned and taught others how commitment and sacrifice can set you free from the constraints imposed by depending entirely on money and material things. The reader can assume that Chavez led these strikes and boycotts, marches and fasts, since the focus of the text is on Chavez's contributions to farm labor reform. These events represent direct action by Chavez to bring about change. But the foundation also makes the point that Chavez learned valuable lessons from his efforts and that he actively tried to influence others by teaching them how commitment and sacrifice can set you free from the constraints imposed by depending entirely on money and material things. The reader can infer that Chavez thought it was important to free oneself from valuing material goods, because people who depend entirely on money and material things would be unwilling to make the sacrifices necessary to bring about change for others or for the common good. And I had mentioned this yesterday when we were doing the comprehension quiz questions, this importance. If you aren't willing to possibly sacrifice some of those things in order to bring about change, not just for yourself, but for everyone in the world or in the country, you may not be able to give those things up. And so he stressed that importance, that really strong but tough idea that people really needed to follow in order to see this change happen. In paragraph 14, the foundation provides further evidence of Chavez's influence by describing the passage of the Agricultural Labor Relations Act of 1975. Because of Chavez and millions of Americans who supported farm workers by boycotting grapes and other products, under then Governor Jerry Brown, California passed the landmark Agricultural Laborers Relations Act of 1975, the nation's first and still only law guaranteeing farm workers the right to organize, choose their own union representative, and negotiate with their employers. The paragraph begins with the transition word because, which signals an interaction, a cause effect relationship between people and events. The boycott by millions of people, led by Chavez, caused a significant event to occur. California's 1975 passage of the Agricultural Labor Relations Act, the country's first law to guarantee farm laborers the right to organize, choose their own union representative, and negotiate with their employers. By focusing on how events and ideas influenced Chavez and how he in turn influenced other people, ideas, and events, the foundation is able to show how Chavez brought about important social change and justice for farm workers. So we are mainly focusing on these types of elements that further prove and demonstrate how not only Chavez's life influenced him to want to bring about change and reform, but that all of his actions then led to a lot of other effects on other people's lives throughout a lot of US history within the past 50 to 60 years. So when we go to the your turn questions, this actual excerpt is from paragraphs 15 and 16. So your questions in part A and B, you want to summarize and use them based specifically on just them. So we're going to read this excerpt from paragraphs 15 and 16, and then we can determine how ideas, individuals, and events influence one another. So I'm going to read the questions first to give you an idea of what what our purpose is to look for as we're reading this. I'll then read these two paragraphs, and then again, I will come back to these questions. Part A says, which of the following best summarizes the impact Chavez had on others, as indicated by the excerpt? Now, you could really say that, honestly, 2 or 3 of these could be good answers. So we need to pick the one that best summarizes his impact. So A, as a leader, Chavez's influence on people and social movements was widespread. B, Chavez was a great communicator. C, Chavez could have done more had he lived longer. Or D, Chavez was strongly influenced by events throughout his life. Now, as of right now, 3 of these could be possible answers based on the whole text. But after I read these 2 paragraphs, we're going to come back to this and then try and determine which one best summarizes his impact. And then part B, you need to pick the quotation that best provides the evidence for your answer that you picked in part A. So A, more than 500,000 people attended his funeral services in Delano. B, he was a unique and humble leader, as well as a great humanitarian and communicator. C, the significance of Chavez's life transcends any one cause or struggle. Or D, the same community in which he had planted the seeds of social justice decades before. So, as I read these 2 paragraphs, really try to identify how one of these really summarizes these best. All right, so paragraph 15. The significance of Chavez's life transcends or goes above any one cause or struggle. He was a unique and humble leader, as well as a great communicator who influenced and inspired millions of Americans from all walks of life. Chavez forged a national and extraordinarily diverse coalition for farm worker boycotts, which included students, middle-class consumers, trade unionists, religious activists, and minorities. Cesar passed away peacefully in his sleep on April 23, 1993, in the small farm worker town of San Luis, Arizona, not far from where he was born 66 years earlier on the family homestead. More than 50,000 people attended his funeral services in Delano, the same community in which he had planted the seeds of social justice decades before. Now, in terms of this paragraph, I would focus a little bit more here. Obviously, the fact that so many people came to attend his funeral services is important, but this paragraph especially should give you some guidance on really what the answer is. So, again, I'm going to reread these one more time for you. Which of the following best summarizes the impact Chavez had on others, as indicated by this excerpt in these two paragraphs? A. As a leader, Chavez's influence on people and social movements was widespread. B. Chavez was a great communicator. C. Chavez could have done more had he lived longer. Or D. Chavez was strongly influenced by events throughout his life. Really think about which of these shows that his influence was so um, was not just for one small group of people, that he really tried to help people for many years from all different walks of life. That's really what I want you to focus on when you are summarizing, when you're picking the one that best summarizes this excerpt. Then, based on whatever you pick up here, part B, which of the following quotations provides the best evidence for your answer? So, whichever one you picked up here, you want to then choose whichever one best relates to it and supports it. A, more than 50,000 people attended his funeral services in Delano. B, he was a unique and humble leader, as well as a great humanitarian and communicator. C, the significance of Chavez's life transcends any one cause or struggle. Or D, the same community in which he had planted the seeds of social justice decades before. Really, you're looking for which of these, again, shows the range of his influence. Again, it's not just one thing that he was fighting for, there were many different issues that he really was working towards. All right, everyone. Once you have this done, you may submit the assignment. And remember, there is no short constructed response tomorrow. You're welcome. I would sing it in the Moana song, but I don't want to drive you guys too crazy. But hopefully now you have that song in your head. In the meantime, remember that Thursday is a catch-up day or an optional exact path practice day. So especially if you have some assignments from the past 3 weeks that you need to get caught up on, definitely try to do that today in any of your classes, especially. All right, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And if I don't see you, have a great spring break as well. Hopefully, we'll see you all soon.